And good evening once again. This was day 163 of the Biden administration. Big trouble tonight in the form of criminal charges, however, for Donald Trump's family-run company and the longtime head of that company's finances. Prosecutors for the Manhattan DA accused the Trump Organization of running a 15-year scheme to help executives avoid paying taxes by paying them off the books and defrauding federal, New York State, and New York City tax authorities. The indictment says 73-year-old CFO Alan Weisselberg was one of those executives. He is charged with grand larceny, tax fraud, after being accused of dodging taxes on $1.7 million in perks that should have been reported as income. Some of those perks include, but are not limited to, luxury cars, rent-free apartment, even private school tuition for family members. Weisselberg surrendered to authorities earlier this morning. Then came the perp walk as he was marched in handcuffs to his booking appearance, where he was ordered to surrender his passport, where he pleaded not guilty. Reports indicate he has so far resisted opportunities to cooperate with investigators. Earlier tonight, Michael Cohen, who is cooperating in this investigation, pointed out that today's excruciatingly public experience might just push Weisselberg to start talking.
I can tell you that the feel of the handcuffs behind your back, it's not comfortable, nor is it sitting there and having your photograph taken. Now, Alan could be, a tough guy for Donald, which is what we all want it to be. That's when you're being investigated.
This 15-count indictment also noted the Trump Organization kept an internal spreadsheet to track Weisselberg's fringe benefits. The company pleaded not guilty through its lawyers, who say the case is politically motivated.
These charges are unprecedented. In 244 years, we have not had a local prosecutor go after a former president of the United States or his employees or his company. I believe the political forces driving today's events are just that. It's politically driven. If the name of the company was something else, I don't think these charges would have been brought.
As to the man whose name is over the door, the ex-president, he stuck to his usual messaging today, calling the indictment a, quote, witch hunt and blaming radical left prosecutors. Daniel, I'd like to begin with you because earlier today you said the indictment was detailed and that it was powerful. For the folks in the viewing audience tonight who won't have the time or inclination to sit down, read and digest the entire indictment, what do they need to know?
Well, this indictment outlines a 15-year scheme to effectively pay Alan Weisselberg and others off the books through very sort of brazen and blatant means by creating effectively separate books. Alan Weisselberg signed checks on behalf of the Trump Corporation that paid for his rent, that paid for his car, that paid for his children's tuition. And it was all documented within the Trump Organization because it all went towards his overall salary, but it allowed him to avoid paying income tax, and it allowed the Trump Organization to reduce its tax requirements. So from a very technical perspective, it is clear that the Manhattan DA's office has overwhelming evidence, documentary evidence. They are clearly in possession of a number of tax records and documents, including that spreadsheet. And so I think that if we're going to focus narrowly on the charges in this indictment, the Manhattan DA's office has the goods, and it appears as if it's a very strong case.
Joyce Vance, for attention spans being what they are in this day and age, for people who want to cut to the chase and get a preview, please preview what kinds of penalties Weisselberg and the company writ large are looking at if convicted.
Sure. So the company obviously can't go to prison. So we're talking about fines in that scenario. Ultimately, perhaps if the New York Attorney General has appetite to do it, she could go after the company using some of New York State's blue sky laws, arguing that corporations that operate with a persistent pattern of fraud are deserving of sanctions. She's done that in other cases. The real issue here, I think, everyone sees that there's a strong case against Weisselberg. Everyone sees that this is not an indictment that can reach the former president. They apparently don't have proof of his intent or knowledge of these schemes. And the question is there something here that would cause Weisselberg to flip and to cooperate down the road? The reality is that sentencing here is likely in low single digits, something that Weisselberg would have been aware of going into it. As Michael Cohen says, sometimes the feeling of the handcuffs can cause people to change. Certainly when people find out that their children have exposure to prosecution, that can become a bargaining chip. Or it might be, as was the case with Michael Cohen, that just the mounting pressure of legal bills and perhaps paying back taxes could cause Weisselberg to ultimately flip. So what we don't know tonight is just how far this goes after Weisselberg and the corporation.
Peter Baker, a lot of folks chose to concentrate today on a vague mention of an unindicted co-conspirator, but we're all left with that mystery. The bottom line is Donald Trump himself has not been charged. Can you give us some idea of what this might mean, however, for Donald Trump himself?
Well, I think we should start by remembering just how unique this event really is. This is not just a company that the president happened to be involved with. This is part and parcel of his entire career. This is his family organization. There are no shareholders or there's no board. This is the Trump family. So it's while he himself is not indicted, the Trump organization is very, very tightly associated with the former president himself. It's not a distant relationship. So that's an unusual, if not unique, in fact, situation in American history to have a former president of the United States indicted in effect through his company and called a criminal organization. We should not lose sight of that. But there obviously is a political angle to this as well. And you already see the politics, right? The Republicans are saying this is just more persecution. This is just more Democrats coming after him. And of course, Letitia James, who's the New York State Attorney General, who's a partner with the Manhattan DA, has said very vocally in her campaigns that she wanted to, go after President Trump. You heard Donald Trump Jr. tonight on Fox compare this, if you can believe this, to Putin jailing the dissident Alexei Navalny, which is a fairly ironic comparison given President Trump's friendship with President Putin. On the other side, you hear the left complaining that they didn't actually go after the president himself, that he personally is not on the hook, wondering where accountability will end up, wondering whether or not this is as far as it will go, wonder a financial charge really gets at the crux of what they would like to see the former president, scrutinized for. So there's a real political element here. Whether it changes anybody's minds about him, hard to say. Obviously, this is an issue that's been out there now for a while. People have factored into their equations and their views of the president. But of course, you're going to hear a lot more about it in the days to come.